You told me a long time ago, you're like, look, if there's 135 pounds on the bar, you want 134 pounds of pre-tension into that system.
Right.
So show us how much tension you would do that the bar starts floating.
Right.
That instead of going from 0 to 60, you want me to go from 40 to 60.
Correct.
So when I tension with my hamstrings, I'm either loading past vertical, pressing in, or pulling the shins back. I'm trying to preload that hamstring with as much tension as possible.
Right, we're just trying to create an even, again, kind of leaning into that tightness and finding just all that torque, another TM, that we're trying to build ourselves into. And we're going to use that by tensioning ourselves and using the bar as kind of a teeter-totter effect.
Okay, so because what I think a lot of people don't understand, that you're like a wicket,
Yes.
and I need to generate force here and force here
Yes.
to tension up from both sides.
Exactly, we're just trying to lean it, just find as much tightness, gather it as much as we can. And we're going to create, get in a little out of position, use the bar, pull that slack out, get in a perfect position, and by doing that, that bar is going to bend, and all that slack's pulled out of the bar, and it should be starting to float.
So when we see athletes who can do this quickly, like Mark Bell, pretty crappy deadlifter, let's be honest, right? Not one of the best. I've seen him rip off, big, heavy 650s, triples, and he can find that position quickly.
Right.
That's an advanced skill. So for a while, it may take me a while to develop tension.
Yes.
When I work with my daughter Georgia, it takes her a long time to feel like she's tight. Is that okay?
That's usually something for the beginners. It's very, very hard. It's a very esoteric thing. Like, oh, all you gotta do is be tight. Like, oh, well, what does that mean? It's very, very hard. It's very, very hard to teach that. So you got to work on getting people in there, and that's why I like to, cause violence and hit everyone. Because if you're not tight, if you don't feel what that is, you're not going to be able to idealize it, because it's just such a, thing that floats around the ethos that you just may not be able to understand.
So get tight. If we're gonna break that down.
Yes. As tight as you can.
At the top, I squeeze my butt as hard as I can. I screw my feet into the ground.
Yes.
Load that hip back.
Yep.
All right. So let's see what that looks like one more time. Perfect positioning. Setup. Same setup. High complex motor skill. Now from here, he's going to use that bar to absolutely take all the slack out of the system. Really, you can start to see the tension in his hands. Ankles in a good position. He's not collapsed. Knees are out. Lats are tight. Very, very tight. All the slack has come out of the system. And the bar is starting to float. So by the time he starts to verticalize his shin and pull, absolutely zero slop in the system.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I see a lot, or cue here from a lot of coaches, is chest up.
Right.
What does that mean? When you're saying chest up someone, what the heck do you mean?
We're just working on making sure that no one, usually what will end up happening is when someone's deadlifting, two things can happen. You can either lead with your chest or you can lead with your hips. When you lead with your hips, what's going to end up happening is you're going to create all this distance to start to cover from lockout, or from hip to lockout. And it's also going to kill all that slack that you have, because that's going to be that first thing, and you're going to get that noise from the bar, and then you have everything to recover from. That's a pretty awful position, just because of the angle of the hip and everything. So we want to have everyone lead up with their chest. It's about making sure everything is nice and tight. It's just chest up, and it's just keeping this position as well as we can.
Okay, so if I'm stiff from here to here, and I've loaded and organized, if I say chest up, it's still the same concept as head back.
It's the same thing.
Same things.
Yes.
But what we shouldn't see is when we see chest up, you don't literally mean chest up.
No, because usually if someone goes chest up, chin goes up, hips go up, knees go forward. So it's going to create a pretty sloppy position in order to try and recover from it. So when we say chest up, it's just making sure that we're almost rounding thoracically, opposed to rounding from our lumbar.
Now, recently in Power Magazine, good Olympic lifting coach, Penley, was talking about he doesn't let his athletes, his Olympic lifters, pull really, really heavy single deadlifts because he feels like he ends up on the wrong side, and it teaches a little bit softer position in the back. Not softer, a different position.
A softer start.
A softer start, or a start that doesn't translate into being able to get the shoulders upright.
Correct.
So one of the mistakes I think people make in deadlifting all the time is that deadlifting set-up shoulders is different than Olympic lifting set-up shoulders.
Absolutely.
So if I'm Olympic lifting, Bergner tells me to get a lot more upright torso, or excuse me, thoracic extension so I can have my shoulders back in that pull, but you're saying that's not, keeping my shoulders pinned isn't the best position.
Well, again, we're just trying to create efficiency in movement. So with your shoulders up and back, we look at where the lockout is. So we try and think about, and what we found out is if we depress, in order to depress the shoulder blade and keep the shoulder girdle protected, keep everything in the spine all corrected, we need to make sure that those lats are on. In order to do the lats on, what'll end up happening is you can get this soft shoulder, lats are still on, thoracic spine is corrected, but now look at the lockout. That's a difference of about 3 inches. 3 inches is a long, long way when it comes to weightlifting.
Especially when you have to pull 100 pounds.
Exactly,
right?
that's a long way to travel that 100 pounds.
That's right.
So let's just go again. So pull up in here. Now he's in his pockets. That, you know, that's that magic cue for everyone. So now we're gonna go ahead and depress it, and we actually start to add here. Kelly does a really good job. That's over 3 inches. That's a hell of a lot. That's a hell of a lot of a pull. So you'll see people missing this high in their deadlift a lot because they don't know how to lock out. That's a lot to do with hips, but a lot to do with their shoulder position as well.
This concept is like, hey, maybe I have a different pulling position, Olympic lifting, with the shoulder on this side, and I need to be conscious of that not transmitting or translating into the power lift. Because I see this all the time. I see big, strong guys who then try to power lift or power clean or clean, and they're on the wrong side, and we're having a hard time in the receiving position.
There's no stance to clean, jerk, push press, squat, and deadlift from. They're all different moves. They should be treated that way. They should be given the respect that way, and find out the best way to do each one of them.
Okay, so talking about absolute power deadlift. So you're almost, it's like the turnout position on the gymnastics rings where I'm fully externally rotated and stable.
Yep.
That looks like the same position.
It does.
I mean, if I was from another era and I was doing cable crossovers low, that's almost the position.
Yes, and your lower pecs would be just jacked.
I know, right?
Which is important.
Which is important.
Yes.
It's not how you deadlift, it's how you look deadlifting that counts.
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
So now that's one of the, I think, a kind of misconception that people understand that you're not rounding, you're very stiff.
Yes.
And that when you pull, there's still no change in your back position when it starts going.
Never.
So if I see an athlete pulling and I see change in back position, what should I do with that?
Tell them to drop the bar.
Tell them to drop the bar.
Yeah.
So, because a stiff rounded upper back, because people are confused, like there's this Russian guy who's freakish. What's that guy's name?
Konstantinov.
Konstantinov, right? He's very strong, and he's murderous. Now, and he pulls with a big rounded upper back. Now, people are confused about this. What's happening?
He starts with an upper round. He starts with a rounded back.
Is his low back rounded?
No, absolutely not.
Never.
Never. Never ever. You'll watch him. He looks like a crane. Looks like this, but as soon as he starts, he goes into that kind of the sexy double chin back. So he'll be here, and what he's trying to do is he's trying to pull all that tension together and get in this position. And the first thing that he does is he throws his chin back. So he comes to this idealized position here before he actually moves that bar. So he's not here and then craning up and going like so. He's starting in this position, keeping everything as close as he can. And as soon as he starts, you'll watch his spine is almost straight up and down.
Can I ever really get, because here's a mistake that I see all the time, is that people are slightly round on the bottom and then they just try to pull themselves flat.
Right.
Is that what I should be going for? If I'm across the room and you see me like this, and then you see me unfurl, is this what you're curling?
No, this is
the dream?
Right, no, it's not at all. It's a nightmare. That's the difference of you trying to get underneath the bar opposed to you using the bar to get underneath it. So you're trying to pull yourself underneath it opposed to using the bar to get to that position.
Because when I see you load from the top down, this is really the top down setup we're talking about, is, and it's a, you know, I've taken out my psoas, I've taken out a lot of the simplified movement. I'm braced, and I anchor, and I just hinge at the hip, and I use the knees to adjust for position. But what I haven't had to do is use my lower back or my musculature of my trunk to try to pull me, because is this a difficult position to lock out for him?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it causes all kinds of back grief.
Yes, that would.
So this is why you're primed to prioritize at the top.
Neutral spine.
Neutral spine, and then brace in.
Yeah.